Okay, so we are now live, and what I wanted to demo is what it is that you can do with Razroo's coding system. And I just wanted to demo really quickly how it is that you can use Razroo in order to generate your Angular repository. And with Razroo, what's unique about it is our mission, once again, is the ability to upload code at scale and then to be able to generate that code and integrate it in a seamless fashion. So what you can do is you go to this razroo.com/finder page and you look for the programming language you're looking for. Right now for me it's Angular. And then you're able to click on this finder page, and then you're able to click on the create workspace and generate something piece by piece. So here I'm actually going ahead and I'm going to generate a workspace, and so this is going to be the name for same name for both of them. For the sample, for this I'm going to call this sample live repo, and I'm going to call this sample live repo, and I'm going to generate this directly to my Razroo repo. So now we can go ahead, and this is just some company I do consulting for, whatever. So now we can go ahead and we can click on that, and we will then generate over to the GitHub portal, and it's going to generate our code for us. And so we'll wait about 3 or 4 seconds, and then we'll get our code generated for us. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to have a way that people can use a command line interface to generate their code soon. So right now we have already our repo that's already been generated. So just so we can have this set up sooner than later, I'm going to go ahead and clone this repo, and then I'm going to open up this folder, and I'm going to open up the let's open this up by name, and let's go over to Razroo, and we're going to go over to this live repo, sample live repo that we just created. So we're opening this up, of course, in our cursor, which is another software development tool that maybe we'll have underneath your belt. But we'll go ahead and we'll just open up a new terminal here, and we'll just click on npm install. And so we're going to see that this repo can be installed. And this is just, of course, the initial piece while this is installing, but this is just the initial piece that you can do while you're using Razroo, which is that it will allow you to just create your sample repo. And we'll see beyond this that there's a lot more that I can create. But while we're waiting for that, let's actually go back to Razroo, and it's going to tell us that it recommends the starter infrastructure next. And so now we're going to select our repo that we just created once again, which is going to be the sample live repo. And we're going to execute this. And what this is going to do is that it's going to generate multiple tiers of code for us at the same time. So it's executing and it's generating the GitHub code, and we'll see this. It will redirect over to our GitHub repo soon, and we'll see the first commit has been created. And if we go ahead and refresh this, we'll see that Razroo behind the scenes is constantly creating new commits, and it's adding it over to the repo. And once it's completed, we're going to get an email from Razroo saying that's all been completed. And in the meantime, let's go back to our npm install. So I see it's taking a while. Of course, live streaming takes up a lot of the bandwidth from npm, so it might take a little bit longer than we like. And that's sort of why I wanted to run this in the meantime. And if we go back to Razroo, it's going to tell us, you can generate your core infrastructure for Angular next. So Razroo also has a recommendations engine, so that I, as a user, I don't necessarily have to be that aware of what it is that's happening. Let's just go ahead and refresh. So we have the project on the side there. But as a user, I can have the Razroo system guide me as to what it is that I should be doing next. So we see, however, sample live repo there, and we still have our npm install that's running. Okay, that's very nice. And we also have this that's still running. So if we were to refresh this, we would see that this is happening behind the scenes. Okay, cool. And if we go back to the Razroo application, just while we're waiting for the code to generate and also for that npm install to happen, if we were to click on the show more button, we would see that there's also Razroo documentation that's attached to each one of these code snippets that's generated. And if you as a user want to, you can comment both on the content itself, so you can leave comments for that. Alternatively, you can also leave code for the actual, you can leave comments for the actual code and say something like, hey, this isn't working. You can say something like, once again, hey, this isn't working, and then you can end up having a conversation about the code that way. So it's a way for the community to interact with each other. It's also a way of leaving bugs and having a way of generating the code all in one. So let's go back over to our GitHub repo here. Okay, and we see that's npm install still going. Let's go ahead and let's refresh. As you can see, Razroo is putting in a lot of work here with a lot of different files that have changed. So I think this is the last commit that we need. Not 100% sure though. I don't want to go to my email because it's alive. That's the only thing. In a normal workflow, I would go to my email. So integrate signav looks like it's the last thing that we really needed. So we'll go ahead and we'll create this pull request. And so now all these merges and all this code has been merged in. And if you want to, you can do a squash a merge, or you can do a single commit. So you can either have it be one commit or you can have it be 21, totally your call. We'll just do 21 commits at the same time and delete this branch. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to now generate the next piece that Razroo is giving us in order to generate this repo. So we'll go ahead and we'll click continue here. And we'll go over to the next phase. And as you can see, what really stands out with regards to Razroo is that we're able to inject piecemeal, piece by piece, the various code that we have within our system into our code base. And that's how it translates over to Razroo of having code generation. So you can imagine, and let's actually also pull in the latest code that we had from before. So you can imagine that if you're someone who wants to contribute to this general Angular code base, instead of having, let's say, to create an entire new Angular starter just to, for instance, promote your authentication system, what you can do within the Razroo system is you can just create the code necessary for authentication, and then anybody can generate that code and they can inject it into their code base, similar as what we're doing here. And Razroo doesn't just create files, it also will modify existing code. And so if someone once again wants to, let's say, add an authentication system into your existing code base, Razroo is able to do that. And that's a large part of the vision of what it is that we're doing. And you can see here it generated these files. A large part of the vision of what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a way that you can take a base of code and everyone can build on it like building blocks, instead of having to create a brand new repo and then it's confusing because I want to use your authentication system, but your authentication system is different than my code base. So instead we can build off of everybody's unique environments. Okay, so we'll wait for this to generate, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create one more item after this, just because the Razroo system is creating so much code every single time that if I were to go through this, I think it would take another 10 minutes, and I really just want to get the point across. But if I were to go back to the Angular Finder here, Razroo will now allow me to select the next piece that's in this path, and I'm going to now integrate authentication with my Angular repo. I'm going to wait for this action to complete in the background. Let's just go ahead here. And so now we've also have our ngrx store, and you can see actually that Razroo is also intelligent enough to actually modify existing code base. So part of this architecture, it's actually moving over and it's using my common environment instead of the actual apps. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a pull request for core infrastructure. Let's go ahead and create a pull request. Once again, we have our live video running, and we also have our code base that's running at the same time, so it's slowing things down just a little bit. So just go ahead and refresh this and make sure we have everything we need, and then we're going to go ahead and confirm the merge. And once again, if we go now over to our repo and we click on get pull, we will now see the latest code that we have. And let's run an npm install again just for good measure in case we missed anything, which once again, it's pretty remarkable what Razroo is able to do, because if you look in here, you'll see we have things like Font Awesome, and we have ngrx store, and we have RxJS, and all these different types of build systems. But the Razroo Unified Intelligence System is actually able to get the correct version for us. So there's multiple benefits here. Let's just run npm start so you can see how the repo looks. I think I didn't really pay too much attention to the color, so don't think too much into how it is that the color looks for this repo. But now we're generating our Angular repo for the first time. Okay, we'll just wait for that to happen. Once again, I'm running a live video alongside of my code generation, so this is taking a while. And actually, while that's happening, you know what, let's just go ahead and let's generate this auth0. So I personally like auth0 just because it's something that I'm familiar with. And so once again, I just click on this, sample live repo. Razroo already gives me all the steps that I need in order to generate my code. And I once again hit execute, and then Razroo will generate all this code over to my repo. Okay, so I see we have one error here, which is fine. Usually if there's one error, that means that it's relatively easy to solve. So we have environment, production. Let's go ahead and let's get that from the index. So let's go over to environment /index within our common environment. Let's re-export this, and I'm going to now go back into the application, and I'm actually going to re-export this into my app. Okay, so now that's been properly exported, and so let's go back here and let's have this export from the common lib actually. So not what I want cursor, I want to see, this is part of where I wish cursor, it's a little bit glitchy, or maybe this is a VS Code thing. It's just not picking this up from the right repo. But what I want this to pick up from is the common lib. So environment from whatever, let's just do the local one. Fine. It's actually, this sample live common repo is actually what I wanted. So let's just make this proper. And so now it's using our environment from a library, a monorepo library that everyone can use. Okay, great. So now if we were to go ahead and go to our local 4200, you can actually see that we have a legitimate application here that's running with a sign-nav and everything. This is a legitimate Angular application. Once again, I didn't care too much about the colors, so feel free to disregard and not look too much into. But let's go back over to our GitHub repo for auth0, and now it's generated for us all the code that we need for auth0, and even updated the readme.md for us. So this is what Razroo will do while it's generating code for us, is that it's actually going to add for us documentation. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a pull request for this, and this is probably the last demo I'm going to have for code generation. I think people here kind of get the idea, and I don't want to necessarily spend the next 10 minutes generating this, especially being that my code's a little bit slow due to my being on a machine. But let's go back to our sample live repo here. And it says that this file would be overridden by the merge. So let's go ahead and let's commit this. And we're just going to say save value. Let's go ahead and push, or let's go ahead and pull rather. Current branch is behind its remote counterpart. Yes. So let's set the config here. Okay, I guess I haven't set a global config within my get. This is a kind of a new laptop-ish. So let's choose get config false. We just want to plain merge. And now we'll click pull. And so now we have a merge conflict inside of our app module. So now let's go back over to our app module, and we want actually both of this app auth core module, and we want both this head. So let's go ahead and save that. And so now we should have this running as expected. It's saying that none of this is around because we need to run npm install. Okay, so we'll run npm install. We'll actually kill our terminal there and let it run. I just want to prove that the code that Razroo generated it works and it's good, you know. So let's go back here and run npm start. And so this is going to run our repo once again. Okay, so we're going to run this repo, and once again we're running a live video, so things here are going a little bit slower. So we're going to complete this, and let's see, what error do we have right now? That we have in cannot find module common services, which is interesting. So let's go into common services module, and right now it's saying that auth service, no suitable injection method for auth service either, which is interesting. There is an auth service in this app. Not sure what's up with that. Let's try this one more time. Okay, that was weird. I guess I'll look into that a bit more, but not sure why that import wasn't right. But okay, so now we'll go back to this, and we'll actually see that it has a login and sign up here. And if we're to click on that, it will take us over to the URL. So as long as I were to put in my right client ID and my right URL, this would actually work as expected, which is huge because for a lot of teams, it usually takes a lot of time to set up authentication, and we can keep going here. We can set up JAS, coverage, reporting, linting, documentation, played right, and then eventually you can literally just use this and you would be able to deploy, you would just be able to deploy your application. So there's one other thing I want to demo here, which is I'm going to kill this just because once again I'm live streaming and I want this to be quicker. You can actually go to every piece of code that's generated with Razroo is actually generated using commits, and you're actually able to use the git blames in order to get documentation. So for instance, if I wanted to know what piece was responsible for this side nav open, I can type in git blame in order to find the git blame for this file, and I can actually find what was responsible for side nav open. So it was this hash over here of 51F7534B. So let's do git show, and it will actually give me the URL of what was responsible for this. So I can now go ahead and click on this URL, copy it. Usually in VS Code it will allow you to open. Cursor has bugs once again, so it opened it up in a drop down, but I can actually now open this up, and I can actually see the code that was responsible for generating this to my local repo. So the reason this is valuable is, let's say if this didn't work out for me, I can then open up my app component.ts and I can say something like hey, this code did not work out for me. And whoever was responsible for creating this code is now going to receive a comment from this of what it is that happened here and how it didn't work for this person. So not quite sure what happened to my comment there. Not sure if it's because my computer's slow or what, because this was working literally right before the demo. Let's open up the comments one more time. Let's try this one more time. And just leave a comment and say, this isn't working as expected. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's broken, but you get the point, which is that this should be working as expected. So just want to do this quick demo, show people how you can use the Razroo Finder, how you can actually generate an existing 18.2.0, the latest for Angular. And over the next couple days, we're going to go over some various other repos, or we might just continue this so we can show how you can actually deploy your Angular application using Razroo. And I'm going to end the live stream here, and until next time.